Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Vacation Rental Insider. Today we have Vince from HomeHop. Welcome, Vince.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah, why don't you tell everyone who you are and where you're from?
Yeah, Vince Baiera. I live outside of DC in Maryland, and I have done a number of things in my career and just continue to try to evolve not only myself, but my skills and continue to take those learnings to double down and try to accelerate all the things that I'm working on. So I've got a young family with twin boys that are going to be 4 years old in about 2 weeks, and married, and just live a pretty nice lifestyle when it's all said and done.
Ah, fantastic. Well, you mentioned evolution. So why don't we start there? When we first spoke, you had mentioned that you were previously an ICU nurse. Can you tell us just how you went from being an ICU nurse to starting, well, essentially multiple businesses and, at an executive level? And now being successful with HomeHop in the short-term vacation rental and hospitality industry. I mean, that's a little bit night and day.
Oh yeah. Well, nursing's probably, the number one hospitality business in the world. And yeah, I started at the Cleveland Clinic and Duke University Hospital in the cardiothoracic ICU, recovering heart patients from open heart surgery, heart transplants, lung surgeries, lung transplants. And in short, did that for about 7.5 years. Through that, about a year and a half of that, I taught at the college level and enjoyed that. But really, to be honest, I wanted to get rich. And you can't get rich being a nurse. And that's just all there is to it. So I moved to the business side of healthcare, started at the very bottom, like making 25, 30,000 a year, like peanuts, scratching by, all that, too much month at the end of the money, and started just really building myself up. And I got involved at one point. I was involved with a network marketing company and had a really great mentor who taught me to work more on myself than I did at my job. And it kind of started me down this path of personal development. And I just say that everything I've learned has been self taught because I went to nursing school. So if you started in a career that has nothing to do with what you're doing now, like, it's fine. Just jump in, go all in, and have some fun with it. So yeah, started growing my career on the business side of healthcare and started working at an IT company in long term care, and then moved to the largest SaaS and e-learning company in post-acute care and healthcare as a whole. Through that time when I was working full time, I actually saw a gap in the market where my own grandparents struggled getting in and out of bed. And I developed a product called the Step to Bed, which is exactly like it sounds, the most deluxe bedside step somebody can buy for their older, loved one. And we helped seniors age in place longer and reduce their risk of falls. And so I built that business up. We did about 15 million of lifetime sales, 8.5 years of overall selling in the market, over 70,000 customers served, and just really felt good about it. And actually just exited that business, which was a nice outcome for kind of everybody involved. And so as I was building that career in the healthcare space in tech, I always had this side business I was growing. And then I started investing with these guys named Nate and Dan, who had this business where they were buying single family homes and turned them into short term rentals. And we just always made the money that they told me I was going to make. So I said, okay, well, look, why don't I come join you guys? I always like to have a few balls in the air juggling around. And so why don't I come join you? We'll start a real estate investment fund where, kind of those basic principles of economics, right? You can either buy and sell, or you can sell and buy. So with the fund, we went and sold the idea, got all the money, then went and bought the homes. And so as the cash came in, we bought 21 homes, we raised 2 million bucks, and we do that in Ohio. We really love the Midwest market in general, but Ohio specifically, where we all grew up. And so the fund went well. We continued to see traction. And then those guys started saying, hey, why don't you leave that cush SaaS job that you got, all those benefits and all that, and come run with us as more of a startup in a younger small business. And so I have ownership in the fund and ownership in the property management businesses. And we're all kind of aligned to say, let's just put our heads down and grow this thing. And so it's been, a bit of a winding road, but a fun journey nonetheless. And just love waking up knowing that I can have a hand and really a say in not only the decisions we make, but kind of the success we can have.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thanks for walking us through that. Do you mind expanding on the investment to fund journey a little bit more and help us just maybe understand what HomeHop is and how that kind of unique model plays into your day to day and how you guys differentiate from others, both from an investor perspective as well as maybe a guest or owner?
Yeah, so HomeHop as a business, there's a few businesses. There's a property management business where that business manages all the homes that the fund has. Okay. The fund is just a structure. It's an LLC that it's the one that technically owns all the properties. So it buys the properties and then it hires our other company, the HomeHop Property Management, to manage them.
Hmm.
So we're growing both businesses simultaneously. There was our first fund, and then we're now on our second fund. Since the first one went so well, we said, let's rinse and repeat. The first one had more of a focus around Cleveland and more of a singular market, about a 60 to 90-minute radius of Cleveland.
Okay.
And then we started to expand for Home Hop, Ohio to really encompass the whole state, like Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, Akron, Dayton, Toledo. And so they kind of work in unison because those are getting more homes that the other company can manage. And at the same time, Home Hop is taking on clients. So say, Michael, you have a second property, that you bought, you don't live there anymore, or you don't want to sell it because you locked in an interest rate at the bottom and you're like, now I want to monetize it. You can hire us to do that management. To speak a little bit about like why we've seen such success is we really lean into processes and systems, lots of technology. We use 31 softwares in the business to run at a very high level. And then we have a growing team up to 19 full-time employees, countless cleaning crews, contractors, etc. So we really try to lean into like what is best in class in the market, try to emulate that and use those learnings to operate more efficiently.
Yeah. What were some of the challenges you faced when migrating and transitioning from a personal investment mindset to now managing a fund and other people's money?
Just that fiduciary responsibility. If I'm managing your money, basically no matter what, I better not lose it. Because the thing is when we raise a small amount of 2 million, it was family and friends, right? That's who you got to sit down next to at the dinner table around Thanksgiving. So I'd say the biggest challenge with investor money versus your own money is that fiduciary responsibility. And when it's your own money, you could be a little riskier. When it's somebody else's, obviously you got to protect it. There's more of an emphasis on that. To be honest, it was a smaller round, only $2 million raised. So a family and friends round where these are the people you're sitting down to, Thanksgiving dinner with. And it's going to be a bit of an uncomfortable conversation if you got to tell them that you messed up and you lost their money. So, that's probably the biggest difference. And the other thing is like not just losing the money or making money, but like the level of return that you have to deliver. You've got to be a little bit more diligent with your deals. You got to, make sure that if you're on the edge, it's like, look, it's just not my money. I can't risk it. Right. And there is that level of certainty when we built our fund. It's a 506B Reg D fund, which basically means we can allow unaccredited investors into the fund to invest alongside with us versus accredited investors. And when we set up all that with all the legal folks, it says very clearly that we could lose their money, but that doesn't mean that they can't sue us. And it does, of course, hold us to that fiduciary responsibility because we're, letting the SEC know that we're running this fund. So there's a lot to that complexity there, but just saying being a bit more cautious and protective than maybe risky and cavalier that you can be when it's your own cash.
Hmm. Hmm. And it sounds like, and I think you mentioned you actually outperformed your projections. What do you attribute that success to, and what lessons did you carry forward into the second fund? Like, how are you leveraging that?
So what we're really learning is larger homes perform better, 4-bed, 2-bath homes and up. We have our own interior designer on staff, and then we have a pretty deep bench of designers in the area that we work with. And so getting a really beautiful home, a really beautiful design, and then trying to lean into amenities, hot tubs, saunas, game rooms, accent walls, things that kids can play. We recently built a slide coming out of one of the bunk beds that we built in
Cool.
for the kiddos. And so it's just about like building a great amenity, taking great photos, having a beautiful design. And that way, when somebody's scrolling, hey, it catches my eye. That one looks cool. Now I want to dig in, right? So there's of course more, but those really are the things that help set you apart in the market.
I think we're seeing that too, and we're hearing that from a lot of entrepreneurs is this trend towards higher end, premium, luxury. And what's also interesting about what you said is you mentioned this notion of amenities, whether that be an arcade or even an experience type amenity like a chef or a Reiki healer type
Yeah.
person coming in. And it really speaks to this like white glove end to end experience. How is that trend influencing your business, and what else are you seeing that's kind of changing in terms of your investment strategy?
I don't know if much has like quote unquote changed our investment strategy because those points we've been trying to do, again, we're doing them more now and investing
Okay.
a little bit more now to do that. You're right. Gone are the days of like just buy a place, throw some IKEA furniture in it, and hey, you got a good Airbnb. I do think that, like, generally speaking, people want something from the Airbnb that they can't get at their house. And so if you can give that to them, again, with amenities, games, things like that, it does go a very long way.
Yeah. Um, how many homes do you currently have under management at the moment?
So we own about 35 of the homes through those personal portfolios and the funds. Again, we're on our second fund. We're raising $5 million to buy another roughly 40 to 50 homes. We already have almost 2 million of that five raised and five homes under contract or totally live and operating. In addition to those 35, we manage about another 66 for other homeowners and investors. So we're up to about 101 total. We just broke through that 100 home ceiling, that, kind of that
Nice.
mental barrier that we had. And now we're past that. So now it's on to 200, and trying to break down those walls.
Yeah. Well, with an additional 40 to 50 homes, it sounds like your timeline's roughly within the next year or so, if not sooner. That's pretty significant. Like, if you have 100 and you're adding 40 to 50, that's like half your company growth in a pretty short amount of time.
Well, those are the
Um,
ones we're buying. We're also
yeah, those are the ones you're buying.
I have a personal goal this year to onboard 78 new properties. So that's 1.5 a week that I'm closing. And these are for other homeowner investors that we're targeting, doing all the biz dev stuff for. So if we can hit that goal plus the, say, 30 or 40 that we buy this calendar year, then yeah, we could see the business double just in this year.
How do you ensure operational quality and making sure nothing slips through the cracks? What do you lean on to get that throughput and either get a yes or no on a sale and just keep cranking through?
I do think that the operational success really allows me, who's leading most of these biz dev calls, to just have like total conviction. And the best part is like what we do is the numbers don't lie. We throw it all in an underwriting spreadsheet. You can see, hey, if you were thinking of doing long-term rental over short term, here's the numbers. When I show you the comps, it's not me just blowing smoke. Like, we can show you other homeowners, we can show you our own, we'll give you a look behind the curtain, we'll show you the real revenue, the real numbers. And the numbers tell the story because everybody wants to make more money. So if you legitimately think you can, well, then great. Well, the only reason I can have that conviction is because I know we've got a good product on the other end. 4,000 plus reviews, 4.9 out of 5. So, to go back to your original question is like, how do we make sure things don't slip through the cracks? I mentioned lots of processes and systems. So we'll use systems like Breezeway for the cleaners. We are really big on documenting and then linking to maintenance requests and prioritizing high importance requests. We do things like we have Notion, and then we'll put
Mhm.
every property's detail into Notion. And then when customers engage, the AI is able to pull on all that data to give them a really accurate, quick answer. We have, I think we're up to 8 full-time guest messaging specialists. So around the clock care, 24/7, 365 days, and they all have access to that same Notion. And so we're able to use that, and the AI is just getting better and better. So it's like anything, right? The more data and info it has to make informed responses, it's just going to keep getting better. And so it's all about like feeding the right data, being very clear. And, that kind of goes back to like how we integrate things and then lean into technology. And that helps us scale faster. It helps keep our costs down in terms of headcount and folks needed to still operate great service for the customers.
Sounds like a pretty well-oiled machine. Are there any squeaky bits of that machine or operational bottlenecks that do kinda keep you up at night?
Yeah, I mean, look, anytime I would say high growth, I think if your business is growing by 50, 100% a year, then call it high growth. It's like, taking a car and shaking it really hard. And eventually you're going to start to see where those screws are loose, right? Some of the things that we always struggle with is having the right designers available to help our clients design their homes. I just can't emphasize enough how a beautiful home compared to just one that, like, say, I would design, it's night and day. The pictures look better, the home looks better, just like everything looks way better. And that is a really crucial piece that sometimes when you're early in your journey of building a business around this, that you don't always want to invest in, but I'll say that that's made a big difference for us. So making sure that our bench of designers that we work with is really like deep and the folks are really strong. And then our interior designer on staff will sometimes take on jobs herself, but she'll act as a project manager to make sure that the mood boards are created, things like that are really good. Other than that, again, we just transitioned from a host away to guesty. We wanted to make sure some of the financial reporting is better. And so that goes back to the fact we have two CPAs on staff, a bookkeeper on staff, but still a ton of work. You're managing so many expenses on the daily of like hundreds of homes. And then you're trying to reconcile all this in a timely manner to get folks their statement. It's just a ton of work. So again, technology, processes, systems, team members, and then trying to build that culture to where people aren't burnt out and they actually feel engaged and want to stay, because we all know that turnover is a real bear. And it's just very difficult when you've got to kind of pause the growth and keeping your foot on the gas to go back and try to train and hire and all that.
Yeah. You know, burnout's a really interesting topic. I come largely from the tech world, and, so many people's careers are these boom and bust cycles of, working for Meta or Facebook or, these major companies like Google, Alphabet, whatever they're called now. And then they grind you and you've worked really hard for kind of 2, 3 years, and then you crash and burn, maybe take 6 months off, hang out in Bali, come back and do it again. Can you walk me through a day in your life, what it typically looks like? Because, you strike me as someone who's very ambitious, go, go, go. You mentioned having multiple business, a recent exit. How do you keep it all in line? What does your day look like, and how do you prevent against that burnout?
So, two young kids, sometimes it's my turn to do the morning shift. And when they get up, let my wife sleep in a little bit and not feel like we're both getting up super early. On days when it is my turn to do the morning shift, by 8 o'clock, we kind of hand off and I'm into my work day. I will work all day and then I try to make a point by about 5 to wrap it up. And I've been a lot better recently about putting my phone on do not disturb. And then usually by the time the kids are down for bed, I can either do a couple things. I can sit and watch TV and watch people up there on the tube go chase their dream, or I can work on my dream. And when you actually like what you're doing, it doesn't feel quite like work. Now, look, there's certainly nights where I unplug and watch a game or whatever else, but I do genuinely feel like I work a lot. And on days when it's not my turn, for instance, this morning I was up at 5:30 and I was cranking on the phone, checking stuff out. I was doing emails. I was working. And again, I'm probably not like, every other person that maybe you'll see where there's multiple businesses and all this other stuff. So, that probably does just kind of require a bit more of the time. Obviously, you can set processes and systems in place, but some of the things that I'll do to prioritize my time is I'll block out time on my calendar for deep work. or if certain tasks need to get done, I'll put it on the calendar, because if it's not there, it's just very easy to kind of let other people run your day versus you kind of controlling where you spend your time. So I can't tell you every day is the exact same, but definitely early mornings, late nights. And to me, it's just kind of part of the game and how I've always done it.
Yeah. Um, well, it seems like you work hard during the day, you get some good rest. Is there anything that keeps you up at night? We talked about a lot of success and you're driven hungry and you just kind of get more and more, but what scares you?
Well, that's a good question. You know, I'm a very competitive person. And, me and my wife, we sit down right around New Year every year and we write out our goals for the year. And then it aligns us both because we kind of know what our North Star is. And I've got my goals posted right here on my little board. And so every day I look at them and I see, what is that North Star that brings me back? I'd be lying if I said one thing always was like keeping me up at night. I think just generally inside, I tell my wife this, that it's like, what age do you want to retire? Do you want to retire at 50, 55, 60, 65, some other age? That's what keeps me up. That's where when I have money, it's like, I want to go, I want to invest it right now. I want to go build it right now. I want to grow it right now. This business, I want to work right now. Cause I do have this thing in the back of my head where it's like, I don't want to work till I'm 65. I want to be able to, like, around 50, 55, be able to be like, yo, now I can just do what I want. And when I say retire, I don't mean stop working. I mean, just genuinely be in a place that if I don't want to work, I just don't have to.
Yeah.
I probably always will either be on a board or be advisors or consulting, or maybe work somewhere where it's like very like around the schedule I want. But that's because, like, I can only play so much golf. Like, I can only sit and, go to happy hour so many times before I'm like, all right, been there, done that. Like, I want to go contribute and do things. And I think sometimes our society gets that a little backwards, and maybe they think I'm the one who has it backwards. I'm not saying don't unplug. I actually take a lot of vacation. I'm probably one of the people at our company who takes the most vacation, and I will unplug. But again, at the same time, like, that's the way I view it. That's probably what keeps me up at night is, am I making the right choice so that long term I can be where I ultimately want to be?
Yeah. That's a real wise mind growth mindset. And I think it's that healthy bit of worry. It's that healthy like self check-in and like self reflection of, am I meeting my goals? Am I making the right decisions, as you said, to get there? And when you're constantly in this cycle of self evaluation, it's a flywheel. And you mentioned competition. I come from an athletic background. I was a goaltender in hockey to a reasonably high level, and I think you had mentioned you were an athlete. Is that competitive mindset and athletic mindset still with you?
Abs-
Sounds like
Yeah.
very much so.
I
Yeah,
I mean, I think sports teaches you more than almost any other thing you can do growing up. It teaches you
I agree.
hard work, delayed gratification, teamwork, trust, showing up, like honesty, like, you get coaches that really come down on you in a healthy way. Like, it teaches you that discipline. Like, there's just so many things. And yeah, I'd say that competitiveness definitely, is deep and burning. I played, Division 1 AA football and was a wide receiver. And so at the end of the day, it is certainly a competition. But, there's a quote Matthew McConaughey he has, and he says that my competition and who I'm striving to be is just myself 10 years in the future. Is I like want to be that person, and that's why I'm working so hard today. And I think there's also like the other side that, it's smart to remember that comparison is the thief of joy. There are so many things with Instagram and all these other platforms where you think, oh my gosh, look at them. They're doing it better and bigger and faster and everything. And it's like, why aren't I there yet? And I do think, again, going back to those goals, when I pull out my goal sheet from 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and I look and I'm like, wow, to me, 5 years ago, if I was just making 100,000, boy, that would have been great. Right. And you see that progression. And so it is a little bit in my mind about that competitive spirit of like, what is my goal? How hard do I want to work to get there? But then at the same time, making sure that, there is some balance. I am unplugging and not losing track of some of the other things that are important, like family, watching the kids grow up and being there, and, not being so burnt out that all dad does is work. That's
Yeah.
not really healthy either.
No. The discipline aspect that you mentioned of athletics really strikes me as well because, you know, a lot of it isn't glamorous, whether you're a junior employee just starting out and, you're just making phone calls and it's kind of the same thing over and over, or a lot of manual tasks, or, you're a director or executive. A lot of it isn't glamorous. A lot of it's manual and repetitive. How do you stay focused on like the less glamorous, maybe boring tasks, or even manual tasks?
You know, I'm sure, like most people, I probably struggle with certain things that maybe I don't want to do. And it's
Yep.
hard to always feel like, well, let me go do that. So some of it I try, if I can systematize or just get it off my plate, then I will. Like in our company, like I feel like I have the best job because I get to do the fun stuff. I get to go talk to people about making money, saving money, and then, hey, come do it with us. And then I get to hand it off, and someone else has to deal with all the minutia of like managing it the right way and dealing with the guests. And so I kind of like, in a sense, try to stay out of the things that I just absolutely don't like. And then again, trying to block out time. And, you've heard the old adage, eat the bullfrog first, and basically tackle your most either thing that you don't want to do the most or the thing that's going to be the most impactful. Like do it first, get it out of the way, and then you can kind of do the other stuff later. So I don't think I have probably a great answer for you, except for I just try to always see how I can build things that can run without me. I think that being a business owner, it's hard to release ownership to
Yeah.
others.
It's about trust ultimately.
Yeah. And you got to be able, like, if your business doesn't run without you, then it's just a job. And so you've got to be able to think through, how can I systematize this so I don't have to be there and I don't have to do it? And for the mundane things, we try to do that. And then we have a large team. So again, if you don't have a large team or you haven't hired, say, a virtual assistant, somebody you can pay, I know some people will pay them $4 or $5 an hour. We pay ours
Yep.
like in the Philippines closer to like $8 an hour, just generally.
And that's top end for Philippines.
Right. But you're going to get somebody who's smarter, hungrier, and they're damn happy because, hey, I get to work from home with somebody in the States who's doing something that's somewhat interesting to me, and I make more than all my friends. So they're going to
Yep.
show up and bring it every day. And I think for you, whether you paid somebody, $400 or $600 a month, if you're actually doing things at a high level, that's inconsequential. And you can hand off those things that aren't quite as fun to them.
Yeah, let's talk about either handing off or automating. Obviously in the last year especially, but even expanding beyond that kind of 2-3 years, we've seen this AI evolution and revolution. So how have you brought that into some of those mundane, boring tasks? I know like your background and Nate and Dan with Y Combinator, you're very tech forward and everyone's so hot on AI. How do you guys currently leverage AI and where do you see the immediate opportunities for it?
I mean, we joke all the time. We're like, can you imagine building this business right now without AI? Like how hard it would be, how like arduous it would be, and just crappy it would be in a sense. So I'll give you a few examples. Say I want to build a process that I do want to hand off. I take a Loom video where it records my screen. I take the transcript. I throw it in ChatGPT and say, build me an SOP. It spits one out. I double check to make sure it's right. We upload it into project management software. Now I can hand it off and say, here's a video to watch how I do this. Here's an SOP of step-by-step how to do this. I'm going to set up the system so it reminds you every week to do this, and then load your result right in there. Super easy. For instance, we rolled out a co-host program. We now do full service management and co-hosting. What did we do? We did some secret shopper calls with some of the big companies that do co-hosting. We took all the things that we thought we wanted ours to look like, and we tried to reverse engineer it. Threw it into ChatGPT, said, hey, here's what I like, here's what I don't like. Another difference that we found that is a bit adjacent, but I think goes back to the AI. When you're using any of these AI systems, instead of typing your question or ask, hit the little microphone and just talk to it. If I give this thing a minute long prompt of me just going, I want to build this, but I want to make sure that, and I want this, I want that, blah, 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 blah. It's going to give me such a more focused answer the first time that then allows me to refine it much faster.
Yeah. Way more rich than trying to type out. It's way slower. You may not get the details. But I agree, like with voice and video in any type of communication, it's just so much more rich. There's so much more, there's a lot more there. Whether it's an AI interpreting it or a person.
Yeah.
Text only gets just so far.
Yeah.
There's no body language to it. There's no tone.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And so, like, we do that stuff all the time. Marketing collateral, hey, I want to build this out. Take this whole co host program, help me make a one pager for it. Now it's getting even better where you're like, do the graphic design for me, right? And so we're using it in like what I think of as very simple ways, but it is kind of amazing to me that others don't do it this way. I mentioned already Notion. We put everything in Notion, like all the communication is in Notion. And then that acts as an AI. So now it can refer back to every past chat about that property and say, oh no, last year it said this. So when the guest asks it this time, it already knows the answer. It just like is such a difference maker.
It grows and learns, right? If it doesn't know the answer, great. Human in the loop, enter into kind of the knowledge base or into Notion, and now it has that answer for next time. So it's only going to get better.
So you'll get a kick out of this for that other business I just sold. Like anytime you're doing legal work, when I work with lawyers, which I do all the time for a lot of different reasons, they bill you by the hour. Well, I don't want to get billed a huge amount. So this other company I just sold, now the standard cost that it would be for an attorney to review a contract for an exit the size we had, for round numbers, let's just say it's around 10 grand. What did I do? I got the agreement. I threw it in ChatGPT. I said, review this. Tell me what stands out. What are red flags? Help me come up with language that I can use to replace it. No, that's too firm. Make it more mutually like agreeable. I do all this stuff. Now I have a conversation with the other owner. I say, what do you feel? Do you feel like you're comfortable with this? Great. Now I give it back to the lawyer. Say, here's the point I want to change. Here's the exact language I want to use. You make the change so I know it's formatted right and everything. That transaction cost me under $2,000 for legal because
That's incredible.
I didn't just go hand it to the lawyer and say, hey, can you help me make this good? I'm using AI all the time. And so we actually have a joke, Michael, you'll get a kick out of this. And I'm curious to know your answer. So I pay for the $20 version of ChatGPT. And some people go, oh, why don't you just use a free one? Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm silly too. But the question I asked my CEO, my partner, I said, how much if ChatGPT, and let's pretend that's the only one, right? Not that you got all these options.
Sure.
If ChatGPT says we're raising our cost, and now the cost is $2,000 a month, would you pay it? If it was $3,000 a month, would you pay it? What is your number?
Where's the threshold?
What is the number that you would actually pay for your preferred AI tool if they no longer allowed it to be free? And I'm curious to know your answer.
Ooh,
And I'll share mine.
it's a lot.
Mine was probably like $5,000 a month, which I know sounds crazy, but like I use it so often.
I mean, there's two prongs. I think there's ChatGPT, which I kind of use to augment and kind of use it for, like you said, like, collateral emails, SOPs, helping with proposals, things like that. There's that side, but there's also the platform that I use internally that kind of I've bought into and we build and also sell, and that has an AI function. So that, could I live without that? Probably. So that I would price at, I don't know. It's hard to put a number on that because it's integral to my business.
Yeah.
But ChatGPT and using that, yeah, I'd probably pay 100x, right? Like if it's $20 a month now, I think you're at the $2,000 mark because you rely so heavily on it. And I think, going to be more. It's going to be more integral. And I think that's going to shape the way they do price it and charge for whether it be transactions or agent usage.
Yeah.
We're at a real inflection point, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, agreed, man. And it's not
That's a
that
great
it's
question,
it's
and it makes you think.
and it's not that we just blindly trust it. You still got to read it. It hallucinates. It gets stuff wrong all the time, but it will take tasks, and everyone knows this, that would you'd have to either hire out and cost 5 or 10 grand for a task.
Yeah. I mean, proposal writing or querying transcripts, really incredible. And the time saving is just huge. And really makes you think about the importance and the value you get. And I think that's why they might be able to start cranking price because of that value. And you're going to be so entrenched in using it that they're a little bit handcuffed. So I wonder if it's going to go almost like the Salesforce or HubSpot model where you start signing 1, 2, 3 year contracts and locking in a price because of that.
Yeah, it could. I do think that's the beauty of a free market. And, the market always wins. If somebody's charging too much, a competitor's going to come in and say, hey,
Yeah.
I can do it cheaper and I'm going to steal your business. And so, yeah, hopefully they don't, nobody from ChatGPT is listening to this right now. Hey,
We
let's
might have to edit it out.
hear this guy. He's going to pay 5 grand a month. So,
Yeah. Any Anywhere where you've considered using AI or even a tech solution, and I'm almost using those terms interchangeably these days.
yeah,
To me, now tech is AI. If you have tech and it's not AI
yeah,
enabled, and I'll air quotes that
sure.
all the time, for at least for the time being, it's not really tech. So anywhere you've considered using AI but haven't, either due to perceived complexity or lack of a solution or just low value, I'm curious, like, if there's anywhere
Yeah,
you've
we tried using AI for outbound calling and just found that it really didn't work very well.
like voice calling.
Voice
Yeah,
calling. And this was for another business. So, every business is different, but it isn't quite there yet. And I know
agreed.
that, I know there's this element of like, well, it's going to keep getting better, but like, I'll flip the question specifically back to you. If you get a call right now from a number you don't quite recognize, but for some reason you feel like, let me take this one, and it's an AI voice that you can tell right away, do you even let them finish their sentence or do you
Nope.
immediately hang up?
I'm hanging up right away.
Same.
Don't care who you are, where you're from. Like, it's spam. You're
Man.
probably trying to scam me or steal my identity or something like that.
And so I think with this shift towards everything AI, that like the communication skills, the ability for like human to human to actually have a conversation, that will be the one thing that's left standing, because I think as like humans, we just crave that like human connection. And when I know I'm talking to a robot, I'm just like, speak to administrator, speak to representative. Like I don't
Hit
want to,
zero.
yeah, I'm like, dude, I don't want to talk. So, that's an area that we've kind of dabbled in, like the whole outreach AI cold calling. Now, if it's inbound calls, again, Notion offers this, that if you call our line, you can have an AI voice and it's reading the same answers that the Notion AI would tell you. I think that's a little different.
That
Especially
is,
if
I
it's
agree.
good. So I'm not like totally opposed to AI voice. I wish there was more of a tool with real estate, especially with short-term rentals, where it could help me underwrite a deal. Where if I was like, hey, these are the parameters. Like for instance, on our website, we have an AI or an ROI calculator, where if somebody's just curious how much their home could generate, they can like, toggle around to
Yeah.
say this, that, and the other, and it spits out a number. I wish there was a way that we could upload a listing, use those kinds of metrics in our underwriting spreadsheet and say, help me underwrite this deal like that. And that doesn't quite exist yet that I've found. And that would be something really interesting, because for us, when we're doing outbound calling to say, hey, we'd like to manage your home, like I'm using kind of a snapshot data at first. And then
Hmm.
sometimes I go back and underwrite it the proper way. And it's like, it wasn't quite as good, or, it's even better. It's a lot easier
Yeah,
for me to say, hey, your home can make 80,000 instead of saying your home can only make 60. And it's because that underwriting.
we're working on something like that and have developed something like that for a client in the UK who's scraping government websites for bids. So very similar, right? They're matching their services and offerings to the bid. Cool, that bid matches. Let's do some analysis.
Yeah.
Let's underwrite it, and actually let me start drafting the proposal. So that sounds
Yeah.
very similar, and it kind of exists. It's custom development. No one's got really an off the shelf offering that I've seen or found, but that is possible. And I think when we get into our AI strategy session, I'd love to understand some of your process there and see if that's somewhere we could help you.
Okay, so then I've got a question for you. I'm a consumer. Let's just pretend I don't know anything about AI besides ChatGPT and type your question. We find somebody in the free market who says, hey, I can build something that's AI specific for you. And I don't know if they're lying to me or if they actually are some savant. I just don't know. How could I, as a general consumer, start to vet a company that's trying to sell me something? Is it their years of experience? Is it seeing past work that they've done for other people or a referral? Is it like key phrases they use through the talk track that helps me know that I'm not going to get ripped off and the thing's going to be of value? What's something that
A lot of the former. I think the latter, the talk track is just junk.
yeah,
If they have either proof that they've already done it or proof that they can be innovative to come up with these solutions, if there's a client referral or a case study, those are all real key validation points. The other thing, and this is largely how we work, is we work on a performance model with a guarantee. So if a lot of what we do is sales and marketing focused and lead generation. So in all of our agreements or proposals, I say all, but generally speaking, we have a performance guarantee. So number one, we say we'll generate X number of leads in X time frame, depending on your business and your market. And that's all based on market analysis and data that we conduct and then we feel confident about. The second piece of that is a lot of our deals have a performance component. So there might be a setup fee, there might be a monthly fee, but oftentimes a lot of our revenue comes from delivering those leads and the actual outcome itself. So again, not to speak too specifically on our business and our sales process. That's not what this podcast is about, but that's something that, you win when we win.
yeah,
And if we're not delivering the outcome that we promise, why the heck are you paying for it?
yeah,
No one should pay for that. Right. And so our agreements say your billing is stopped or paused until we meet these metrics and goals. And I wish more businesses operated that way. So many businesses are just happy to collect. And if you leave, we got 1,000 clients, you're but one drop in the bucket. And that's not how I want to do business. It's not how I want to be as a consumer, whether that's B2C or B2B consumer.
yeah. Agreed. Well, I think aligning incentives really just goes a long way. So that performance-based model is something I think most people can get behind.
Yeah, and I think that's what's interesting about your fund too, because you're in it right there with them, right? Like you're an investor owner with your clients too. So, you win when they win. And that speaks to, like you said, aligned goals, aligned values, and aligned outcomes.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah. What beyond HomeHop, are you seeing any exciting or disruptive AI trends that are kind of in the broader vacation rental and property management industry?
I think kind of almost back to my question that I asked you just now is when you walk a trade show floor, any technology company says, we're using AI to do this or AI to do that. And I think it's hard to always decipher is that kind of what you've always done, but now you call it AI because you want people to think you're like tech, really good tech people? I haven't seen anything that's just blown me away that said like, this is where it's at. Again, that Notion, I would say, is a pretty big component of our platform. I know there are entire like property management softwares that their whole thing is like, it's not a piece of AI built within a platform. The whole platform is AI for like property management software. But again, how reliable and great those are, I haven't personally seen firsthand, just I haven't like done a deep dive. So I think it's just the trend is going to keep going in that direction. And like most things, it will be a bit incremental, but I haven't seen anything so far that's just like stopped me in my tracks. That's like, I've got to go buy that today. But it doesn't mean it's not out there. It just means maybe I haven't slowed down enough to actually like see it and know
Yeah.
about it.
Any opportunities you see for someone to come into the space and create like just this blow you out of the water product?
I mean, I think, you know, saving time and saving money will never go out of style. That's Amazon's whole thesis is, you know, get people their packages faster and for cheaper. With that being said, I think, going and just looking like fundamentally at businesses, like sales is the lifeblood of a business. So how can you drive more sales, right? Can it be by doing better underwriting, by doing better like AI calling, but can it be by like automating other parts of the sales process or sending proposals faster? So- Sorry. So I think if you just look across a business, how can you help a business save time or money? Maybe it's their reconciliation at the end of the month for when they get statements out. And there's a way to use AI for billing for property managers and short-term rentals. That could be one because if it shaves 2 or 3 days off of your time and you're paying a CFO in effect to get these right or a CPA, there's just a dollar cost that you can easily point to. Hey, it takes your guy a week to do this. By using this tool, it only takes him 4 days. You pay him $100 an hour. That's $2,400 a month that you can shave off of your cost to your CFO. You can buy my solution for only $800 a month. It's a no-brainer. If you can just think fundamentally to the core of like, how do you save somebody time or money or get them more of what they want? How do you and then you can easily show that like by doing this, it does that. We all agree. Yes. Okay. Now let's point to your cost today. If you can cut that out, it saves you time or saves you money. Like that's how I think about solutions when I'm trying to go from 0 to 1.
You got to have a business case that makes sense, and you make it difficult for them to say no. Um, yeah, and bring it back to like what we do, and kind of you asked earlier, like what's the validation? That's exactly what we do. We build the business case, and we say, X outcome and X time frame, and if we don't hit it, you don't pay. And if we do hit it, your projected ROI is 10 to 1. Oh, okay,
Yeah. Makes
right?
sense.
Yeah, it makes it hard for them to say no, and starts to de-risk them.
Yeah,
So I totally agree with that.
for sure.
Right on. Well, as we get to the end here, a question I like to ask a lot of executives that we have on is, what is a piece of advice that you'd either give to a younger Vince or maybe just someone starting out in the industry?
I'd say just bet on yourself. Don't be afraid if you know, I always thought that like all these, really smart people and like really successful people were really smarter than me. And I would even try to hire consultants and they'd come in and say, well, here's the answer. And it would be the same thing I would read in a book. They'd be the same thing that I heard on a podcast just the other day. I think a lot of times there's this thought that like the idea is the hard part. And the truth is the ideas, the knowledge, it's all out there if you'll invest in your time and yourself to learn it. I think be voracious in your learning, bet on yourself. Sometimes a bit of naivete is a good thing because you don't know that you're not actually supposed to be able to do that. You'll go like launch a, snack product into the market and you're like, that's the dumbest business ever because none of them succeed. But you like don't know that because you haven't been in the industry a long time. So you try anyway. And guess what? Yours is actually different and unique and does actually seem to catch traction. So sometimes there is a bit of value and benefit in actually not being like super seasoned. But I think bet on yourself, outwork everybody else and try to find things that, bring you joy because it is very hard when you just genuinely don't like doing either certain tasks or jobs to
It's so true.
like you're just not going to wake up and be like, dude, it's 6:30. I'm done with my morning routine and now I'm time to get into work. Like you're going to be like, oh
Yeah,
my
not
God.
not not to be hyperbolic, but it's like slavery. It feels like that. Your body and mind eventually will wear and break down. if you feel forced to do something rather than self-compelled.
100%. So, yeah, man, those are the things. What are yours? What's some advice you'd give your younger self?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I think I'll start on the positive. Number one, if and when you succeed, don't self-sabotage and like acknowledge that you're worthy, you worked hard for it and you deserve it. I think we talk a lot about entrepreneurs, this fear of failure, but I think a lot of people have a fear of success. And people don't talk about that because it's really hard to fathom that. It's like, why would you be fearful of being successful? But it does exist. It exists for me with this big sense of imposter syndrome too.
Yeah,
And so, when the times are hard, that imposter syndrome really kicks in. And I would say again, like, okay, I don't have a fancy degree on the wall, right? I got a cork board. Whereas I look over at my wife's degree and it says Bachelor of Commerce from the University of McGill. That's a heck of a degree, along with her nursing degree. So, for me, I have this imposter syndrome and I say, screw that. I do have the experience. I do have the knowledge. I worked hard in my early days to sponge up as much knowledge as I could and get to where I am. And I didn't need that college degree. Hockey, like you said, taught me a lot. Team sports, especially being a goaltender, teaches you a lot about life and how to conduct yourself and work in a team and delayed group, all those things that come in team sports. So the advice I'd give myself is when you're down, keep the belief you have the skills, knowledge, and work ethic to get there. And when you're up, don't be afraid to celebrate the wins and give yourself a pat on the back because you've earned it, you deserve it, and you are worthy.
100%. Well said.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Last but not least, where can people find you and how can they get in touch with HomeHop and learn more and potentially find a property for you?
I mean, you could just Google me, and I'm out there on Instagram and LinkedIn. And for me personally, if somebody wants to email me at just vince@homehop.com, very easy to find. And yeah, if there's something we can do for you, by all means, reach out. And always happy to kind of, lean in and see what we can do for others.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Vince. It's been great to have you and HomeHop on the show. We wish you the best of luck in 2026 as you expand and go gangbusters with a huge growth goal. And we wish you the best of luck and have all the confidence that you will do it and do it again. So thank you very much. And everyone have another great day. It's been a good one having Vince on the Vacation Rental Insider. See you soon.